Have you ever heard of the house with no basement in Ohio? It's a story that still gives people chills. It all started with a college student named Aaron. He was looking for a cheap place to live, and he found this small, isolated house for rent. It was a steal, almost too good to be true. On his first night, exhausted from moving, he was just about to fall asleep when he heard it. A faint whisper, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It said, "Aaron, come downstairs." He sat up, confused. Downstairs, he'd toured the whole house. There was a living room, a kitchen, and a small bathroom. There was no basement. He got up and walked through the quiet house, checking again. In the back of a closet, under an old rug, he found it. A square wooden hatch, flush with the floor. It was sealed shut with thick, rusty nails, hammered in so deep they looked like they'd been there for a century. The whisper came again, a little clearer this time, seemingly rising from the floorboards right beneath his feet. "Aaron, come downstairs." It sounded ... hungry. Something was down there, trapped beneath the floor, and it knew his name. A cold dread washed over him. He backed away from the closet, locked the door, and spent the rest of the night with every light in the house on, listening to the silence, praying he wouldn't hear that voice again. He told himself it was just his imagination, the stress of moving, the unfamiliar sounds of an old house. But deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. That sealed hatch wasn't meant to keep people out. It was meant to keep something in. The next night, sleep was impossible. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every creak of the old house making his heart pound. He kept glancing at the clock. 3:10 a.m., 3:11 a.m. Then at exactly 3:12 a.m., the entire house shook. It wasn't an earthquake. The vibration was coming from a single-pointer closet. He crept out of bed, his feet cold on the wooden floor. As he got closer, he saw dust raining down from the closet doorframe. Then he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. A metallic groaning followed by a sharp crack. He slowly opened the closet door. The wooden hatch was visibly trembling. The thick nails, once firmly embedded, were now bent upwards, straining against the wood as if an immense pressure was being applied from underneath. Something was trying to push its way out. He held his breath and listened. From below the hatch, he heard a sound, a slow, heavy, animal-like breathing. It was deep and raspy, like a large creature struggling for air. And then a voice slithered through the gaps in the floorboards, so close it felt like it was right next to his ear. "I can hear you. Why won't you let me see your face?" Pure terror seized him. Aaron scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet, and ran for his bedroom, slamming the door shut. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking too much to dial 911. What would he even say? He huddled in the corner of his room, his back against the wall, eyes fixed on the door. And then his phone vibrated in his hand. He looked down at the screen. A new message from an unknown number. It contained just 2 words. "Still here." He didn't sleep at all that night. When the first light of morning finally streamed through his window, it felt like he'd survived a siege. He decided he needed a hot shower to wash away the fear, to try and feel normal again. He stepped into the bathroom and turned the water on as hot as he could stand, letting the room fill with steam. He just stood there for a long time, letting the water run over him. When he finally turned it off and wiped the condensation from the mirror, his heart stopped. There, written in the steam as if by an invisible finger, was a message. "Do not open the hatch." It was in frantic, messy letters. But he was the only one in the house. He hadn't written it. Was it a warning? Who could have left it? It felt less like a threat and more like a desperate plea from a previous victim, or maybe something else entirely. The day passed in a blur of anxiety. He considered packing his bags and leaving, but where would he go? He couldn't afford to lose his deposit. He tried to convince himself it was all a sick prank. But that night, the sounds started again. This time, it wasn't just breathing. It was footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps, echoing from beneath the floorboards. But they weren't stationary. They were moving, pacing back and forth from one end of the house to the other. It sounded like something was crawling, slowly, methodically, searching. He couldn't resist. He had to know what it was. He got down on his hands and knees in the living room and pressed his ear against the cold, hard wood of the floor. For a moment, there was silence. Then a whisper curled up through the grain of the wood directly into his ear. "It's been so long since I touched warm skin, Double quotes. Aaron leaped back as if he'd been burned, scrambling away from the floor. He spent the next hour pacing his room, his mind racing. He had to get out. He couldn't stay another night. He started throwing clothes into a bag when his phone suddenly rang, its shrill tone cutting through the silence like a scream. He looked at the screen. The caller ID was just 2 words: unknown basement. His blood turned to ice. It was impossible. There was no phone line down there. There was no signal. How his thumb hovered over the screen, his body trembling uncontrollably. Against his better judgment, he answered the call. He slowly brought the phone to his ear. Silence. Then a deep, guttural voice rumbled from the speaker, a voice that was no longer just a whisper. It was clear and resonant, and it sent a wave of nausea through him. "I learned your voice," it said, "from listening to you breathe, from listening to you cry. Now open the hatch, Aaron." He screamed and threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, the screen going dark. But the voice didn't stop. It continued, now echoing from the broken phone's speaker. "Let me out." Then it came from the living room. The TV had turned on by itself, its screen blank, but the speakers were broadcasting the same chilling command. "Let me out." Then his laptop on the desk flickered to life, the voice pouring out of it. His small Bluetooth speaker on the nightstand joined in. Soon, every electronic device in the house was speaking in a horrifying chorus, whispering and demanding in perfect, terrifying sync. "Let me out. Let me out. Aaron." The house was no longer his. It belonged to the voice, and it was getting closer. The story goes that Aaron was never seen again. The house was found empty a week later by the landlord. The only thing out of place was in the back of the closet. The wooden hatch was wide open, the thick nails torn from the floorboards, lying twisted on the ground. Whatever was down there was finally free. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you want us to investigate, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe out there.